Hello and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as good as FDR's, but hey, it's something. Now, as you can see, this episode is another visual one. Now, why is this one a visual and not just audio? Well, I guess it's because this one's going to be a bit more lax, I guess you could say. This one's not really going to be a, hard-hitting one. It's not like I'm using this episode to debunk a big left-wing YouTuber or whatever. This episode is going to be more lax. As you can see, we're going to be doing another quiz. Which is why I probably filled us to the brim with stories, because that way it'll justify a longer video. With that out of the way, let's get right into the news. First, we're going to talk about this one. Feds investigating alleged illegal donations to Collins' re-election bid. Okay, so basically, an unsealed search warrant application shows that the FBI believes a Hawaii defense contractor illegally funneled $150,000 to a pro-Collins super PAC and reimbursed donations to Collins' campaign, and there's no indication that Collins knew about this, but she helped the contractor at issue, then called Navatech, and since renamed the Martin Defense Group, and secured an $8 million Navy contract before most of the donations took place. So basically, look, she helped the contractor get a $8 million contract, and then they funneled this amount of money to her campaign, and, she's claiming, oh, I had nothing to do with this. But let's be real, that probably explains something. You see, remember, Collins got this much amount in the final election, when throughout the campaign, she was expected to lose the election. She was expected to lose, and Gideon was expected to win. And this probably explains why all of a sudden she somehow managed to, get back into the fray. I mean, this is textbook corruption if I've ever seen it. So, yeah, Suzanne Collins is corrupt. She needed money to get elected, so let's move on. The next story is one that is very interesting. You see, remember Liz Cheney? Yeah, well, this guy, Anthony Bouchard, is running against her, and as you can see, he's not really getting that much, he's not getting good news coverage of his campaign, to say the very least. He apparently impregnated a 14-year-old when he was 18 years of age. You see, Anthony Bouchard had a relationship and impregnated a 14-year-old girl when he was 18, and he basically explained the reason why he covered this. This is interesting. He didn't say the girl's age in a Facebook Live video that he did, basically trying to admit, yeah, I did this. And here's his stupid explanation. So, bottom line, it's a story when I was young, two teenage girls, girl got pregnant, two teenage girls, what? He said in a Facebook Live video, you've heard those stories before, she was a little younger than me, so it's like Romeo and Juliet story. And this was a... Bouchard told Star Tribune that he married the girl when she was 15 and he was 19, and they were both living in Florida. You see, basically, here's how the rules work. I don't know if this goes on to stay, but you see, here it goes. She had problems with the relationship. Her dad committed suicide. Does it talk about her killing herself? Because that's what happened. She ended up killing herself, because she was traumatized. But as this thing states, technically, he's not doing anything wrong. Technically, though I'm not entirely sure. Why don't we take a look at Florida's state of consent laws? Okay, so basically, here's how it is. The age of consent in Florida is 18, but close-in age exemptions exist. A person who is 23 years of age or younger can engage in legal sexual activity with a minor aged 16 or 17. Unlawful sexual activity with certain minors. A person 24 years of age or younger who engages in sexual activity with a person 16 or 17 age commits a felony to the second degree. The legal age for non-penetrative sex is 16, and there are no close law exceptions. If the offender is 18 plus, it is a second-degree felony, and if the offender is under 18, it is a third-degree felony. A law passed in 2007, as amended, states that people convicted of certain sex crimes involving children may be removed from the sex offender registry list if they were no more than 4 years older than their victims and had the offense on their records, and the victims were 13 to 17. So this is one of those things where it technically, quote-unquote, isn't illegal, but that doesn't really change much of the situation. Basically, like, this is literally like a sort, like, he calls it Romeo and Juliet, but it's not really Romeo and Juliet in the romantic sense. It's Romeo and Juliet in the sense that Romeo was like 18 and the girl was 13. That's the only reason why it was Romeo and Juliet by any stretch of the words. This is like, that fucking, like, a show I watched recently called Violet Evergarden. It's an anime, but it was a girl, she was like 14, and the adult was 20, and they were like in a loving relationship. It's like, no, why? Don't do this. Like, and this is one of those weird things, like, because even people will say, like, well, I mean, technically, it's not wrong. It's only, and this is one of those things where it is, like, personal preference. You see, when I was in high school, like, I mean, when I was in high school, I never dated anybody who was, like, a freshman when I was a senior. Well, I mean, I never dated anybody, but that's a different story. But basically, as a high schooler, I know from both sides how things are. Like, I remember going into high school and being like, I'm essentially still a middle schooler. And then I remember being a, like, senior and seeing people coming into high school for the first time and being like, these are children. These are literal children. And most people who are, like, seniors, they have a job. They have, like, a girlfriend. They've usually gotten someone pregnant. I mean, this guy got someone pregnant too, but, like, they're usually in a range where it makes a lot more sense. Like, 1 year or 2 years even. Like, the youngest an 18-year-old in high school would date would probably be, like, 16, not 14. If it's otherwise, it's literally creepy. Like, it's legitimately very, very creepy. I wouldn't even think about, like, short girls who were in my same classroom, because it's creepy. It's legitimately creepy to me. And yeah, this is just completely creepy. At least in my stance. You might view differently, but I just so happen to believe that this is a very creepy situation. Okay, so let's move on to something less creepy. Israel. Now, as you can see, I currently have some co-sponsor lists, because what is going on in the Israel-Palestine situation is that there have now been 2 bills introduced to try and stop the aid to go to Israel, providing for congressional disapproval of the proposed direct commercial sale to Israel of certain weaponry and munitions. So AOC introduced this House bill to basically say, hey, we can't, like, don't give money to Israel, or weapons, don't give them it at all, period. And as you can see, she has 14 co-sponsors. Let's look at those co-sponsors, shall we? Mark Buchan, Rashida Tlaib, Cori Bush, Betty McClellan, Ayanna Pressley, Ilhan Omar, Andre Carson, Raul Grijalva, Pramila Jayapal, Hank Johnson, Marie Newman, Danny K. Davis, my boy Chewy Garcia, and Jamal Bowman. Hands off to these guys. Now, there are a lot of people, of course, that are missing that you would probably notice. You know, Rose not on there. Mondaire Jones isn't on there, but that's because they signed that, like, Israel thingy where it's like, don't withhold any aid to Israel, period. But these guys, commendable. Like, it's commendable that these guys signed on this. And this bill is even a thing to begin with. That's very commendable. Especially, like, I'll be honest, even especially Chewy Garcia. I did not expect Chewy Garcia to be holding up to my expectations as much as he has. Like, I call Chewy Garcia the 5th squad member, but yeah, he is. He's legitimately the 5th squad member, and no one can tell me otherwise. I'll stand this man till I die. I'll say this 100%. I'll stand this man till I die, because he's been living up to expectations, and people don't talk about him as much because he's old, but he deserves the recognition he deserves. But anyways, Bernie Sanders also introduced a resolution similarly, but as you can see, no co-sponsors. No co-sponsors. It's a sad situation, but unfortunately, there is no co-sponsors to this bill. Not Ed Markey, not Raphael Warnock. I mean, I don't know who will co-sponsor it. But I don't know if anybody will co-sponsor it. There's a possibility that none of the senators will co-sponsor it. If I had to make a prediction, I'd say Raphael Warnock probably has a good chance of co-sponsoring it, maybe. But otherwise, I don't think so. Okay, so the next story talks about Israel and Hamas. They've begun a ceasefire. Hooray! Finally, they have a ceasefire. It is amazing. There will be no more violence on either side of the situation. And the joke that I was going to make was that the reason why there's a ceasefire is because Israel has essentially gotten their, sexual satisfaction out of this. However, here's a problem. Yeah, we got that. What's the... There's supposed to be... There was a tweet here that was like... Okay, what is this? Ceasefire will be annulled and the IDF will immediately return to striking Gaza if Hamas continues to fire rockets at Israel. So yeah, basically, the situation is... Yeah, the ceasefire ain't 100% happening. So I guess they still don't have their satisfaction out of it yet. Okay, so next story, as you can see on this page, is revolving around our good old boy, Jeffrey Epstein. Well, here's what happened. This is the interesting part for me. Jeffrey Epstein, his guards, were caught basically saying that they falsely had been... They lied when they said that they were checking on Epstein. So now... This is the thing. This is the big thing that everybody's been making jokes about. Jeffrey Epstein was murdered. Now let's be honest. Was Jeffrey Epstein murdered? Yes and no. I think the situation itself is sort of in a mixed bag. It's one of those situations where it's maybe he was just murdered by neglect. As you can see, these guys are saying they willingly and knowingly filled out documents falsely claiming that they were checking on him. So maybe that was just them being lazy and then Epstein killed himself due to that? Or maybe maybe that's the case. Maybe it's not the case. We don't know. We don't know the situation. But, But basically, yeah. The situation itself basically is... Yeah, we don't know. Well, maybe we do. Maybe Jeffrey Epstein did kill himself. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I don't know. But anyways, let's move on to the next story. Now we're going to talk about a country that I haven't really talked about that much. 5 Salvadorian president's allies accused of corruption. The U.S. State Department lists several politicians and officials in Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador credibly alleged to be corrupt. The U.S. State Department report on Central American officials credible alleged to be corrupt includes 5 Salvadorian officials with ties to President Nayib Bukele, 6 sitting Honduran lawmakers, 2 Guatemalan legislators, according to a list released by the Office of the U.S. Representative Norma Torres on Tuesday. The list emerged less than a week after the U.S. Special Envoy for Central America, Ricardo Zuniga, visited El Salvador and met with Bukele amid a push of the administration of the U.S. President Joe Biden to confront corruption and bolster the rule of law in the region. So basically, the reason why this is prevalent is because this guy, Nayib Bukele, he's been in a lot of controversy because he essentially this guy pushed for, he basically made his law out of this. He basically took over control Okay, so basically, he basically took control over his Supreme Court. And that really did put a big hindrance. I won't talk much more about this because there's a lot more I should look into. But first, let's talk about this story. We've been talking about Morena's chances in the governorship so far. Why don't we talk about their Chamber of Deputies? So basically, Morena is slated to lose a complete majority in the Chamber of Deputies, but not by much. Basically, here's how much seats they have now. 256, 11 for PVM, 46 for PT, 25 for Citizens Movement, 12 for the PRD, 21 for PES, 48 for the PRE, and 77 for the PAN. And basically, Morena themselves are slated to lose the majority, but due to their coalition, they will still be able to keep it. But it still won't be enough to completely dominate Mexico. They'll still have to, handle the hurdle of, a somewhat decently large opposition. So, yeah, we're going to have to wait and see how that plays out. But while we're on this, let's talk about 2024. Because Mexico has been doing some polling for the 2024 elections as well. What is the conclusions? Well, basically, the conclusions that were made were Claudia Sheinbaum and Marcelo Ebrard the best choice for all the people, really. No matter the candidates, it's these two or no one. Okay, so the next story is coming from our good old friends Brazil. Lula has stated that he will be a candidate against Bolsonaro. Now, while technically this isn't an official candidate announcement, because he's not running at this particular moment, this is a good indication that he is at least, he literally said a little bit ago that he was not interested in running for the presidency, period. But nowadays, he's not that interested in, nowadays he does seem to be interested in seeking the presidency. And yeah, that's pretty interesting, especially considering, if you want to be technical, let's look at the polls. Let's look at the polls right now. Because the polls are essentially all you really need to focus on at this early in the game. Lula is the only person beating Bolsonaro in the first round polls. As you can see, he's been having a pretty good day. And let's look at the general election when it's just 1v1. Well, that's 2019. Yeah, Lula's still got it. Lula's still gonna be getting good. So yeah, that's essentially all I gotta say on that topic. Will is probably going to win if he runs. So let's see how that plays out. Okay, so now on to the political spectrum quiz. What is this quiz? It's on GoToQuiz, as you can see here. Basically, this I don't think is like as serious as other political quizzes. You see, this one is sort of like the political compass quiz. I mean, essentially it is the political compass quiz, but they also add 2 more spectrums. Like, first they'll give you just like a generic this, but then they'll also give you like a couple of lines to indicate other things on your political ideology. Alright, so let's get a move on. Let's finish this video real quick. Laws should restrict abortion in all or almost all cases. I'm gonna go no. Laws should not restrict abortion in any cases, really. Unions were indispensable in establishing the middle class. Yep, 100%. 100%. 100%. They basically built the country, aside from the slaves, but, you know, they did a good job. In nearly every instance, the free market allocates resources most efficiently. No. That's not a thing. Okay. Public radio and television funded by the state provided a valuable service to its citizens. Yeah, I'd say mostly agree, yeah. You know, PBS provided a good way to keep kids entertained and blah blah blah. It's got a good way for kids to learn. Some people should not be allowed to reproduce. Nope. That's not a thing. Access to healthcare is a right. I know what this question's going for, but, you know, I've stated before, this word's scary when you got it in a healthcare access thing. Everybody has access to healthcare, but, you know, not everybody has healthcare. So, just for this, because I know what this is the single payer question, I'm going to go with strongly agree. The rich should pay a higher tax rate than the middle class. No duh. That's just a no-brainer. School science classes should teach intelligent design. Wrong. School science should teach science, not fantasy. Marriage must be heralded for the important role it plays in society. Yeah, I'm gonna go with neutral on this, because it's just like, You know what, no, I'm gonna put like a little bit to disagree, but this is really not important, really. Sometimes war is necessary, even if it means you strike first. I get to a degree what they're trying to say, but I don't necessarily think I agree with this. I'm gonna put slightly disagree, and I'm gonna put a little bit, you know, war is usually never the answer. Patriotism is an overrated quality. I'm gonna put agree on this because, you know, to a degree it's like, to a degree I get being prideful for something, but, you know, I mean, there is to a degree a limit. Radio stations should be required to present balanced news coverage. That's a good question. You see, this is a question that kind of gets about the idea of, like, equal access laws. You know, it's a law that people talk about in regards to, say, like, I don't know, like, basically, like, if you have one candidate come on a radio show, that other candidate should be allowed to speak. And to a degree, I guess I kind of agree with it, but I would probably go with neutral on this, just because, to a degree, it's like saying, like, oh, should we cover this guy and should we cover the black nationalist and the white nationalists? Should we balance coverage, am I right? I don't know. Government should do something about the increasing violence in video games. I'm gonna go with disagree. Yeah, disagree strongly because it's just dumb. If our leaders meets with our enemies, it makes us appear weak. Disagree. Because meeting with your enemies is a good sign that you're not a violent force, and being on good terms with everybody in the world is a good idea. We must use our military from time to time to protect our supply of oil to avoid a national crisis. No. Disagree 100%. No blood for oil. Strong gun ownership rights protect the people against tyranny. I'm going to go with disagree on this. It makes no sense to say I'm spiritual but not religious. Yeah. I'm going to have to go with neutral on this because, I do a degree thing. Like, if you don't believe in, like, religion, then why would you believe in something, like, huge and spiritual? But it's like, who cares? I honestly don't care. It's not the government's responsibility to regulate pollution. Disagree strongly, 100%. Gay marriage should be forbidden. I'm not going to say a big no to that one either. It should be against the law to use hateful language towards another racial group. I'm going to go with disagree on this. Because to a degree, yeah, First Amendment rights is one thing, but is also, like, to a degree, like, it depends. That's why I put a little bit disagree, not strongly disagree, because, I don't know. Government should ensure that all citizens meet a certain minimum standard of living. Yep, I'll agree on that 100%. Everybody should have, like, a little bit of something, even if it is everybody gets, like, one studio apartment. I don't know if that's a big thing or not, but, like, it's something. Like, give everybody a minimum thing so they can pull themselves up on their bootstraps, hypothetically. It is wrong to enforce moral behavior through the law because this infringes on an individual's freedom. Yeah, I guess kind of. Depends on the... no. Yeah, it's like the government telling people, like, you have to be virtuous, you have to be blah, you have to do this. Like, I see it as, like, a religion trying to enforce its religious values on a populace. But I don't know. There might be some people who might think this is a, right-wing thing or, like, a left-wing thing. Okay, so immigration restrictions are economically protectionist. Non-citizens should be allowed to sell their labor domestically at a rate that the market will pay. Immigration restrictions are economically protectionist. Non-citizens should be allowed to sell their labor domestically at a rate the market will pay. I'm just gonna go with neutral because I honestly don't. I could be stupid, but I don't really get the question. An official language must be set and immigrants should be forced to learn it. Nope. Incentivize them to learn the language, but don't force them to do it. Whatever maximizes economic growth is good for the people. Depends, but I'll go with strongly disagree because, a lot of corporations, them making money doesn't necessarily help people in the long term. Sometimes it might, but sometimes it won't. And that's the thing. Whatever maximizes economic growth might not be the best for everyone in the world. Racial issues will never be resolved. It is human nature to prefer one's own race. Nope. That's no. That's just a big fat no. People with a criminal history should not be allowed to vote. I'm gonna go with no. Strongly disagree. Nope. What's this gonna do? I've always been perplexed at this. What is this supposed to do? I know what it actually does, but, like, to the people who legitimately believe this, what does this do? If a person, like, do you think, like, a murderer or a rapist is gonna be like, I was going to murder this person, but I would lose the ability to vote for Donald Trump, so I can't do it? No, that's not gonna happen. What's going to happen is that people who are largely minorities are going to be barred from voting, which coincidentally happens to mean less democratic turnout, which is why also voter ID laws are a thing. That's the real reason. It's all racism. And if you're a black person or a Hispanic person, you're a self-hating person. Marijuana should be legal. 100%, dude. States should fine television stations for broadcasting offensive language. No. Again, free speech. I'm for free speech in that regard. saying naughty words and saying naughty language doesn't offend me. It does not make any sense to understand the motivations of terrorists because they are self-evidently evil. No, I'm gonna say disagree on this. It is, to a sense, a good reason to understand what makes them snap, what makes them do certain things. Like, it's a very noticeable thing to figure that out. We need to figure out why they're doing this. I don't know. Alright, let's see. Continue. There's more. The lower the taxes, the better off we all are. No. Minority groups that have faced discrimination should receive help from the state to get an equal footing. Yeah. You know, help them at the very least get on the same level as white people. That's what social democracy is supposedly supposed to do. Get people on the equal footing and then allow the capitalism to do its thing. Help people get to the standard where they can help themselves, and then maybe they'll have a fighting shot. Like, you don't even have to go that far. Just help them out to the point where they need to. It is wrong to question a leader in wartime. No. Question leaders all the time. You should always be allowed to question whoever your leader is, no matter when it is. Tighter regulation would have prevented the collapse of the lending industry. Yeah, regulating this normally works. Okay. It makes sense and is fair that some people make much more money than others. I'm going to go with disagree, because to a degree I get it, but, you know, in the grand scheme of things, there is a limit. There is a limit. Like, someone making $20 and someone making $21, that's one thing. But somebody making like $3,000 million a year, I always bring up this example. Jeff Bezos, he makes much more money in 10 seconds than the average Amazon employee makes in a year. That is a big thing. And that is something we need to resolve. Yes? Alright, let's see. Toppling enemy regimes to spread democracy will make the world a safer place. No. Non-interventionism is key. I don't care what these other countries are doing. There is, to a degree, a thing where we can step in, but toppling the regime of our own volition is not going to be the case, because that will inevitably just be us world building, becoming the world's police. And I don't approve of the United States becoming the world's police. I approve of the United States maybe exerting diplomatic powers, but otherwise that's it. Okay. The state has no business regulating alcohol and tobacco products. I'm in between disagree and neutral. Because, to a degree, I get why you would want to regulate these products because they're bad. But also, it's because, some of these regulations will definitely harm a lot of, like minority groups. Like that thing where Joe Biden, banned menthol cigarettes, and that's going to largely affect African Americans. So, I'm going to put neutral on this. I can, in good conscience, say agreed, because it depends on the regulations. Especially considering, some of the regulations are just going to be bad. Like, for example, many people propose a tobacco tax. That's a terrible idea, because it just means you're going to be taxing poor people who are more than likely going to be on smoking. Okay. If an unwed teen becomes pregnant, abortion may be a responsible choice. I don't like the fact that it says an unwed teen, because it assumes that this is the problem. That's not the problem. This is the problem. They're a teenager. They don't have an income that can feed a child. So I'll put agree, because as this, they should not have it. Especially if this is a thing. This in total is also a bad thing. If they're I mean, I'm not even going to say if they were this would be okay. Because, yeah, what is a wed teen going to do? That's not a good idea. Especially consider who they're going to get married to. That's a terrible idea. Like, I mean, that guy in the earlier got married to a teenager. Did that help her out? No, she's dead. Okay, let's see. Next question. International trade agreements should require environmental protection and workers' rights, meaning no free trade with countries that lack pollution controls and labor. Absolutely, yeah. This is a thing. Like, if we're going to enter a trade agreement, they have to be, like, on our same page in helping the world. Yeah, I'll agree with that. Gay equality is a sign of progress. Yep. Having people be equal is a good thing. The state should be able to put a criminal to death if the crime was serious enough. No. I watched that John Oliver thing about the death penalty, and yeah, I after watching that, I was legitimately just like, yep, I can't support the death penalty anymore. Not even in a situation where it's like, yeah, this guy clearly deserved it. It's like, I can't. I know that in certain situations I'll say differently. Like, for example, when Jeffrey Epstein killed himself, it's like, good riddance. But I can't in good faith honestly say that I would agree with the death penalty as it is now. You have to reform it to the point where it is a way where it is safe for something like that. But even then, I don't even know if I'd agree with that. The military budget should be scaled back. Yep, 100%. We spend way too much money on our military. We spend more money than they combined, or like 10 more nations combined. Economic competition results in innumerable innovations that improve all of our lives. Yeah, that's a tough one. Because I'm trying to think of a situation. I had an example about this that it did kind of ruin it for me. I don't know. I know I kind of disagree with this. Or maybe even strongly disagree with this. But I don't remember the example that I was going to use to explain why it's a bad idea. What is it? I don't remember. It was an example that I heard off of someone else, so I should remember it. Or it's what I made. I don't know if I made it up or something like that. Oh, yeah, now I remember. When here's the example. I don't know if I remember this is the exact same example I was going to use, but this is an example I am going to use. When Mexico privatized Pemex. The idea is like, we opened it up so companies can compete with each other. So shouldn't that make Mexico's lives better? You know, if all these companies are competing, now naturally the prices would go down because they'd want to keep up with each other. And then people would be able to afford more gas. And then it would help each other out, right? That's not what happened at all, though. Gas prices went up. And they even got to the point where people were literally drilling into gas pipes in order to do something. Like in order to get the gas. Clearly, competition didn't help them out in that regard. So yeah, I'm going to go with strongly disagree on that. It is not a place to condemn other cultures as backwards or barbaric. Yeah, I'm going to say yeah. When one group is slaughtering another group somewhere in the world, we have a responsibility to intervene. I'm going to go with neutral on this. You know what, maybe slightly agree. But again, no, neutral. Because it depends on how. How do we intervene? If they explain, like, if the question was like, we have the responsibility to intervene by any means necessary, then I would say disagree strongly, because that implies war. But if it said responsibility to intervene in a diplomatic solution, then I would put agree. It depends on the way you do it. We'd be better off if we could just lock up some of the people expressing radical political views and keep them away from society. No, I'm going to say strongly disagree. I believe that people should be able to express the political views that they want, barring the idea of certain political beliefs. Like, I mean, I do believe that there is a limit, depending on what the political beliefs are. For example, a Nazi going up to a Jewish person and then, like, beating them up. Maybe lock that guy up because he's committing a crime. But, you know, if he's just saying, like, his Nazi spiel, that's one thing. But then, like, say he's saying his Nazi spiel to 1 million people, and joining people into a little gang that he's going to try and use to do horrible things with, then you'd have to go to that situation. But I would say, for the most, just because of that, I'm going to go with disagree. Because again, there are some things where it's like, there's a limit. Unrestrained capitalism cannot last, as wealth and power will concentrate to a small elite. Yep, 100%. That's just that. This is the thing that capitalism is. That's the thing. I thought this was just that was just capitalism's goal the whole time. That's how it was taught in school, because that's how it is. That's just how it is. Monopolies will happen. It is a problem when young people display a lack of respect for authority. Absolutely disagree. We should be questioning authority every day, but of course, again, to a degree. Question authority. That doesn't mean disobey everything, but just question your authority figures. When corporate interests become too powerful, the state should take action to ensure the public interest is served. Yep, 100%. The person's morality is one of the most personal nature. Therefore, governments should have no involvement in moral questions or promote moral behaviors. I guess I'm gonna go with neutral on this, because I don't know what they would consider a moral question. For example, some people think it's immoral to kill people via abortions. So would that be considered? Will the government be considered moral behavior? I don't know. The state should not set a minimum wage. Strongly disagree. There should be a minimum wage. A nation's retirement safety net cannot be trusted to the fluctuations of the stock market. Yep, 100%. Offensive or blasphemous arts should be suppressed. Absolutely not. Alright, optional. Please give some information about yourself. Okay. This is just to give some generic things for how do I compare with other groups. Okay. United States. Why is the United States at the bottom? Select your state. Okay. Select your race, ethnicity. Hispanic. Select your political party. Dependent. Alright, let's see. Let's get my results. Let's see where I am. Ha. You are a far-left social libertarian. Nice. Okay, what's my other things? Foreign policy. On the left side are pacifists and anti-war activists. On the right side are those who want a strong military that intervenes in the world. Culture. What are you on the culture war? On this liberal side or the conservative side? The scale may apply more to the US than other countries. So yeah, I'm pretty far left, as you could say. Okay, let's take a look at more. My score versus the comparisons of other people who take this quiz. I can compare it to anybody. I'll compare it to my age range real quick. Let's see how this looks. I want to see how this compares. Okay, so most of the people in my age range are like this. Okay. How about everybody again? How about me against guys? Let's see how that is. Ooh. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, let's see. How about... You know what, just for fun, I'm gonna check this. How about me versus people from Mexico before I compare it to the US? Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, this makes sense. Okay, let's see. Now, yeah, I'll compare it to the US. Let me compare it to the United States. Alright. That makes sense as well. Are these just the same results that I'm just going, Okay, now let me check my home state of NC. I just want to compare it to mostly my stuff, but I'll also check for the political parties as well. Yeah, this is just the same. That was just the exact same. Let's see if this is different. No, that's also the same. Okay, Democrat. This should at least give us something different. Okay, yeah. This also makes sense. Okay, Democrat, Republican. Let's see where that goes. Yeah, that makes sense. This should be a bit more like that. Libertarians. Okay, let's see. Libertarians. I already have, like, suspicions on that. Okay, that's similar. Okay, let's see. Greens. Haha, I'm to the left of the Greens. What other political parties do they have? Ah, dang it. Let's look at the New Dems real quick. Oh, wait, I'll check with New Dems and Labor. See what this gives us. Ooh. Ooh, that's interesting. Okay, let me check. The Australian Greens, U.S. Independence, and Bloc Québécois for the last one. Ooh, this is pretty cool. Australian Greens are lit. So anyways, that's pretty much all I gotta say on this quiz. You already got the results. You can check this quiz out for yourself and you can see where you stand. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that bell to be notified when a future video of mine comes out. And if you're interested in more content from me, you can go to my website, follow me on Twitter, join my Discord, or check out my articles on the Independent Political Report.